sorry, as I was saying, the date picker dynamically creates a page with just these limited set of controls on it, nice and clean and simple. After you're finished, it comes back, navigates to the calling page, and brings the data over with it. Okay, so we can bind these with two-way binding. Okay, that's not a problem. And finally, we just have a text box for the salary, and away we go. Now, while I'm here, I'm just going to remove the commenting because I'm going to add event handlers for these application bar buttons, so I might as well remove the commenting on this section here so I can make it active. Since I'm editing this page, might as well do that now. Okay, so back to the code behind page. I mean, this worked, right? In a simple approach, it had obviously the problem that bound objects were too good at saving their changes immediately, but the concept is simple enough that we get the active employee and show it. Now, of course, what we want to do is create this clone of the active employee and bind it as the data context of our grid, right? So one thing I'm going to do up here at the top of the page is create a copy of that clone object, my view model object. Just got to find where I am here. Okay. Now, of course, it doesn't quite know where that is, so a control period. I can add just the using for my view models folder. So now I'm just creating an object called the view, right, which is my clone of the employee in this case. So what I want to do when I navigate here, now I'm still going to use this because I still need a reference to the app object because it's my center of the nervous system for the application at this point in time. And let me just put a bit of code. I'm going to do this a bit at a time from my copy-paste stuff so we can talk about it and build it up a bit at a time. Okay, so again, a little bit of using work to add, just my models folder. Okay. All right, so what we've added here is corresponding to the fact that I threw one of those list picker controls in the XAML, I need to populate it, right? It's a drop-down list, so I have to have some data to show it. So that's no need to put it in a separate show data event or method here. I'll just put it right in this code. I'll just go get a list of departments and put them in alphabetical order and add that as the item source, or assign it as the item source, I should say, to my list picker for the departments, right? And now here is where I'm using that load method of my view model object. Remember, I created it higher up in the class, so when I navigate to the page, I grab, okay, since I have the reference to the app object, I grab who's the active employee, which we remember our code in the select event, right, of our list control on the main page throws the currently, whichever one you selected by touching on it, that employee into the active employee. So we grab the active employee, load it into my view model. So now I have a clone or a copy of that employee, right? And basically I bind it to the data context. There we go. So that's the basic logic. It's not much different from what we had, but now we're going to work with a view model object. So we can have the choice of when and if we're going to save changes. Okay, now a bit more code that I threw in here. I'll just add it back a bit at a time. Besides this, if you think back, I talked about this last week, okay? To add a new, we can reuse this details page for two scenarios, adding a new employee or updating an employee. What we did in code was when we're going to add a new employee, we just created a phantom employee object. We only set the minimum number of properties for it, and among those properties, we set the ID equal to 0 as more or less a flag to know that this is going to be a brand new employee, and if we're happy with it by the time we're finished entering the data values for it, then we will actually save it as a new employee, right? But that's the difference then. We navigate to this page, we could be coming here to add a new or to edit, right? So the active employee, we still use that as the conduit to get the employee over here, but it might be this phantom new employee with the ID of 0, or it could be a real one that exists in the system already. How do we know? Well, quick and easy way is check for my flag value of 0. If the ID equals 0, remember I did have a getter for this, so I can just access this property in my view model object, right? Then I know that this is a new record. Okay, so I might as well change the title at the top of the page to add employee instead of edit employee, right? So it makes sense. It's clear to the user what they're doing. And the other thing I'm doing down here is we're just disabling the delete button. Okay, no point. This doesn't exist in the database yet, so trying to delete this employee wouldn't make sense. So I have save, delete, and cancel buttons along the application bar. I'll disable the delete button. So that's what these 2 lines of code do. This just gives me a reference to the button, and then I just set it is enabled property to false. Okay, so we're almost done. Now there's one more twist. There's another if, and that relates to what I said a minute ago with my my date time picker control, basically, right? Because it generates dynamically a new page, and we navigate back from that page. We're going to call my navigated to event, just because we selected a different date. But we don't want to execute all this code, so we could organize this differently, and we could take a few different approaches. But it's fairly easy to simply check, okay, for my sorry, my little E object here, my navigation event args, how am I navigating to you, to this spot in code? So that's the last little thing I'm going to do, because if I'm just coming back to here, navigating back to this page by selecting a different date, then I don't want to execute any of this code, right? So I'll just wrap the whole thing inside of another if here. Okay, don't refresh the employee if you just change the date. So we can check that if the navigation mode is back, then the only thing we could be navigating back from is the pop-up, basically, the pop-up page that comes from selecting a date using that special date control. And just to make sure I get the formatting right, I'll go like that. There we go. And that should indent everything inside that if, right? Because we don't need to do any of that code if we're just coming back from picking a date. Okay? So hopefully that's a little bit more clear than if I just pasted it all in at once, but you see the idea. All right. Well, for the event handlers for my application buttons, I am just going to copy and paste those in. Just got to see what level I want to be here. Okay. All right. So these are these little app bar buttons that exist across the bottom of the screen, right? They're always available no matter what's going on the page, and so they make it easy for us to get work done. A couple of usings to add here.